Creativity is supposed to be our escape. But what happens when depression makes it impossible to create? On today's episode of Flipping the Page with Antonia Carter, a month later, I'm off schedule, we're going to be talking about my little bout of depression that has caused me to fall off schedule a smidge, along with ways that creatives, particularly writers, of course, can cope with this depression and still be able to produce some wonderful creativity. Now, this might get a little heavy, but I promise you will enjoy all the things that we're going to discuss today. So sit back, relax, and hopefully enjoy the ride. So I'm just going to get down to it. There was once a time in my life, a long time ago, where I really struggled with depression. I went through a really tough, rough period where I didn't necessarily see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I'll save that chaotic story for another day. But things got really bad. And I have done a good job since then of not allowing myself to get to that place anymore, or not get even close to that place anymore. And then the beginning of this month happened. And I guess I'll use a scale of 1 to 10 to kind of demonstrate where I was. So during this rough time, I'll say that was a 10. That was a hard 10 out of 10 where I was in the past. And I remained at about a 1, if that, over the last few years since then. So super low. I was making sure to prioritize my mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. And so it never really got past a 1. And so at the beginning of this month, it spiked to a 4, maybe even a 5. And I guess also for reference, I will touch on what was already going on. So my life has been a little hectic since September of last year already. I have a family member who is dealing with a terminal illness. And then I got a diagnosis of my own of a severe case of scoliosis that was almost close to causing some more severe problems. And so I was already dealing with all of that in this time. And I was pretty miserable where I was job wise, like pretty not happy, not okay. But I was doing fulfilling work. So the people that I was working with were helping to fill my cup. But overall, I was just not happy. So already I was in a pretty wild place to begin with. And if you guys have seen any of my previous videos, you know that this writer bug, this determination hit around June or July of last year. So I was clinging to this dream for the life of me while still going through all of the insanity of the last few months. And that's not even bringing up other issues like my grandmother's declining health, my mom essentially being very selfless and prioritizing everything else above herself, not taking care of herself. And I am the oldest daughter, so if you know, you know. And there's a whole peppering of other issues on top of the 2 bigger issues. So I think all of that started to pile on at the beginning of this month. I think that's where it started to seep through the exterior, and I was really feeling it. I was really feeling it. I think that I've been handling it all pretty well up until this point, and I don't know what it is about this month, but it really just hit me, everything that was going on, and I felt all that work that I had been doing on my mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. I felt that coming under fire. So at that point, the 1 had skipped on up to a 4, and that is when I had become super concerned for myself. Like I said, I had dealt with depression in the past before, so this time I knew what it felt like. I knew what the signs were, and even something as small as, you know, me wanting to sleep more, or me being unable to get out of bed, or allowing clutter to start piling up around the house. I was just noticing these things that before would have snuck up on me, and now I was like, I think we're heading in not a great direction. And there was once a time in my life where even a pinch, maybe even an ounce of this feeling would have halted everything. Um, I've discussed this before in other videos, but I've wanted to be a writer since I was 8 years old. So this is something that has been on my heart for the last 20 years, and I'm finally fully going after it. But it took, one of the reasons that it took so long was that when I would feel any kind of emotional upheaval, I just would stop, or I would go into a fight or flight thing, or go into survival mode, and just stayed in survival mode for a long time, where I only could do what I needed to do to survive and not necessarily what I wanted to do to thrive and be happy. Also, I apologize if you hear any kind of snoring in the background. I have a very large dog that is napping right behind me. So yeah. And I think that creatives, especially if you're new like me and you don't already have like some kind of established career that you can look at to motivate yourself with, I think it can be very hard to pull yourself out of a dark space when you feel it coming on, because you already are fighting an uphill battle. You are already, especially if you're doing the indie route like I am, there is so much that I'm learning every day that I have to do, or I should do to be successful in between the posting and the research on the settings and just the writing itself, which is a lot. There are so many ways that you're already fighting a battle as it is, and then when that depression hits, you could feel that lack of motivation, you could feel that fatigue, you could feel just that creative inspiration just disappear. You can just feel it slip out of your fingers, and your imagination isn't even working properly anymore. And I feel like I also gained a new layer of understanding for any of the super famous creatives that we've learned about throughout history who have struggled with any kind of addiction or mental problems or anything like that, because there's so much that comes with the territory of being a creative, so much self-doubt if you allow it to happen, so the loss of confidence at points, and so many downsides to it, I think, if you don't stay on top of that. But if you are also dealing with depression outside of what already comes with that territory, when they're stacking up on top of each other, I'm like, wow, I can really see how somebody would become an addict this way. But notice how I said that there once was a time that this would have halted everything. That means that this is not that time for me anymore. Even though I am working my way through it, still climbing through the mud, I am moving and I am making progress, and I am still pushing myself. Nothing has come to a screeching halt because of what's happening right now. One of the tips that has been super helpful for me to still get something done during this time is honestly to lower the bar. So if you've seen any of my previous videos, I've talked about my progress and my scheduling and things I had set in place, my plans for the year, all these things through all the excitement. And I, at first, when this first hit, I started to doubt myself for not sticking to that schedule, for being off just by a week at that point. I was really upset with myself, and I felt kind of like I was back into that place before of putting survival over my dreams. And I was like, this is all for nothing. And what are you doing? You've made this YouTube channel where you've told people that you're going to do this and you're not doing it. That inner voice was just really potent that first week. But I had to stop and recognize that I was still doing something. I needed to give credit to the tiny things that were getting done, because at the end of the day, one step is still a step forward. It's still movement. So even though I wasn't sticking to my schedule and trying to get a chapter a day done or anything like that, I was still plotting with my characters, or I was still jotting down notes in my little notes app about whatever it was, like book 2 or 3. I was still doing things here and there, even when things had felt pretty dark. And that in and of itself was an accomplishment for me, because again, before, literally everything would have just stopped while I was feeling this way. If I only wrote a single sentence that day, I had to learn to stop and pat myself on the back for those 10 words, or for that sentence, instead of chastising myself for it not being 1,000 words. And under that same category, setting a timer also helps for me. Even if it was just for 5 minutes that day, I was going to do something that furthered this whole agenda at some point or some way. Like I said, I'm going the indie route, so there's like 50 million and one things that I need to be doing on top of actually writing. So even if it wasn't writing the book itself, maybe it was looking into which website people I need to go through to build my own website, or who to go through for building a newsletter or anything like that. If I did something that day that was productive within that little time frame that I gave myself, even if it was just 5 minutes, that was still something. Something that also helped was utilizing other creative outlets. So I am a writer. Hello, authortube. But I don't really have much of a skill set in other creative forms. I'm not a painter or a sculptor. I don't really have that sort of talent. But even it's the whole point is not to produce some masterpiece, but just getting something out. It could just be as simple as journaling or doodling or anything like that. Just allowing those juices to flow, to move any kind of way. I felt like that also helped me to release some of that tension that is in your minds during times like that, and just allowing things to just move, so to get the cogs rotating. And speaking of movement by itself, physical movement, exercise was a huge tool, honestly, to pull me out of the dark time when the depression was at a 10 out of 10. Actually, the thing that I immediately did to pull me out of that was movement. And there's so much science behind that, you can look it up, but like, movement really does help with depression and or just mental blocks in general. There is a correspondence between physical movement and mental and emotional movement. You need to allow things to flow, and it could even be dancing. Sometimes I would just put on a song and just dance in my room by myself with, well, I guess with my dog, but just allowing a flow to start taking place, and you can turn your brain off and just not even think. You don't have to, there's no routine, there's no choreography to this, just letting things just flow out the way that they need to. Exercise / movement was a huge game changer. So even though this time was not a 10 out of 10, even though I was working hard to keep it from going any higher, that still was a huge proponent for this time as well, and keeping it at the level that it was, and then eventually bringing it down, because I'm no longer at a 4/5. So yeah. I think also that putting forth some effort into creating some kind of comfort ritual or routine can also be helpful. You can make your favorite drink while you're sitting down and putting on your favorite movie, and you're under your favorite blanket, listening to your favorite playlist, just something that you normally derive some sort of pleasure or joy from, and making sure that you put forth some kind of effort to be in that place. Depression is like being in a hole. You're having to claw your way out of this hole, but I feel like the hole is also kind of like quicksand, because you have the potential to sink even further if you allow it. So even something as small as drinking your favorite drink or something like that, that is going to be that nudge in the wall that you can cling to as you're trying to climb your way out of this pit. And in general, this is the time above all others that you need to be showing yourself some grace. If you are like me and you struggle to do that, or you've struggled in the past with that, you have to learn to give yourself a break. You have to be okay with things not necessarily going how you planned, or this little monkey wrench being thrown in this routine that you've set for yourself, and just show yourself the same kindness that you are often willing to show to your friends or family or strangers even. I find that a lot of people can show grace towards others a lot more easily than they can show grace to themselves. And when you are depressed, you desperately need to turn that back to yourself and show yourself that same grace that you so graciously give out. Now, depression also has a voice. She's a liar. Depression's a liar. And I found that depression will tell you your feelings aren't that important. Your feelings don't matter. Your experiences don't matter. You really shouldn't bother other people with what you're going through. You don't want to be a bother. She's a liar. Don't listen to her. First thing that you want to do is turn away from that bald-headed hoe and go to your friends and tell them, I'm going through this. This is happening in my life. This is how I'm feeling. right now. You know, she got me the first time. Back when it was a 10 out of 10, she got me. That's actually what helped it get to a 10 out of 10. I listened to her and I didn't really tell a soul what I was going through. I kind of kept it all to myself, even though a lot of things were visible. You know, I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping for one, and those things tend to be visible after a while. So it's not like I was hiding how I was feeling all that well, but also at the same time, I was still smiling, still telling jokes, still being as easygoing as I could on the outside. And I was not really being vocal about the depth of darkness that I was feeling in that moment. Now, this time around, she wasn't about to get me again. I wasn't about to listen to her again. So honestly, the very first thing I did when I recognized, oh, this is starting to feel like depression, we're starting to approach this territory, I immediately told my friend that I was with. It hit me, or I recognized it while I was actually on an outing with some friends, and I immediately said something. I don't even know if there was a reason in my head when I did it. It was just I didn't even think about it. It came out. I blurted it out, and because also I wasn't really hiding it that well on the outside either, my mood had noticeably changed. So I guess it was also an explanation of why I suddenly feel different, instead of just allowing myself to look emo and just not say anything. For the people that care about you, they want you to say something. That's why I said, don't listen to that bald-headed hoe. Don't let her trick you into believing that people do not care about what you're going through. The people in your life care, and they want to know. I've had my friends cuss me out for not saying anything the first time around, because of course I let them know years after the fact. Honestly, I let them know years after the fact what I was going through, how bad it had actually gotten, and they were highly upset that I did not say anything. And maybe that's another reason I kind of just blurted it out in that moment, because I swore to them that I would be transparent and I wouldn't hide that sort of thing anymore, because we are so close. I don't know how your relationships are in your life, but I have the kind with, we don't really have boundaries. There's no such thing as team I. We're ingrained in each other's lives. So I have people that were passionate about being there for me and wanting me to say something. So I made sure to do that this time around. And nobody that cares about you will ever tell you, oh, you shouldn't have told me that, or you shouldn't have involved me in this, or you should have kept that to yourself, or anything like that. And that's not then on them to get you out of that. That's not, nobody can get you out of depression like that. You can't put that on somebody else's plate. That doesn't become their responsibility to do. However, when I told my friends, and I told multiple friends, one of them, she started texting, calling me every single day, which we already talked weekly anyways, but she made it daily at that point, just to check in on me, just to let me know that she loves me. You're gonna get through this. This is just temporary. Just offering support and just offering love. Nobody can really do anything or follow any kind of equation to pull you out of it, but they can shower you with that support and encouragement that I feel like you don't even realize how much you need sometimes while you're in it. And honestly, you guys have been more than helpful, more than you would even know. You guys who have joined my community, who have commented, who have shown support in other ways, that meant the world to me. And honestly, that was a huge point of support as well. So for example, I'm going to be launching a Kickstarter this year for my debut series. And for I don't know if you guys know, but Kickstarter doesn't really show you how many followers you have if it's less than 10. And I believe I created a pre-launch page 2 months ago, maybe. So I haven't been able to see it this whole time because it hasn't even hit 10. I randomly logged in one day last week and I saw that it was at 11. And that was the most amazing number that I could have seen in my life, because I've only mentioned my Kickstarter in 2 previous videos. I haven't posted it on my social medias yet or anything like that. I just happened to mention it, and I put the link in my bio, which the link will be in the bio for, or not in the link will be in the description for this video as well. So be sure to check that out. But I just felt very moved and encouraged that 11 people in that moment had only heard tidbits of my story, and they decided, I want to be a part of this project. I want to help out with this project, just based off of the tidbits that I have touched on in 2 other videos. So in addition to relying on the physical people around you, just relying on my virtual community That was a huge help, and honestly I teared up quite a bit when I saw it, because I've mentioned this, I'm emotional, you guys know I'm emotional, I'm sensitive, I am a crier, and I cried happy tears when I saw those 11 supporters. I think that just blew my mind, because this story is still being written. She's plotted out, but it's still being written. I'm still figuring out who I need to go to for cover design and edits and all of the things. So it's still very much so in its infancy, and still 11 people decided that they wanted to support me, and that meant more than I could ever possibly describe in any video, because you guys didn't know I was going through anything. When you hit that you want to be notified when this thing goes live, you didn't know that, and just something that small helped out a lot. And you know, to go back to what I said earlier, when I was really down on myself for making this YouTube channel and not sticking to a routine, I had to remind myself that the point of this channel was not to document consistent results every single week. It wasn't to show you guys a perfect point A, point B, point C, or anything like that. The point was to take you along on this journey with me, the ups and the downs, the insanity and the roadblocks and all the things I was expecting to encounter, because I am new and I don't know what I'm doing. And yes, that was another reason for making this video, was for that transparency and showing all that I am going through as a debut author. But so you guys, thank you so much for everybody who is watching this video, for everybody who hit to be notified when I launched my Kickstarter, for every wonderful comment, every like, every subscribe. Like, it really truly means the world to me, and I truly get emotional every single time I see just one new person pop up, one new comment, one new like. I get emotional, so thank you guys. So in summary, before I start crying for real all over Beyonce's internet, you are not alone. Depression is not this nasty little secret that you should keep to yourself. I know that it wants you to crawl under a little rock and just stay there, or in a little cave and remain hidden from the world. Don't talk about it and just deal with it by yourself. I know how that feels, but you are not alone. You should not keep it to yourself. You should not just take it and roll over. Like, you are in the quicksand, but that doesn't mean that you can't get out of it. There are so many more ways to deal with it, I'm sure, than even what I mentioned. So please, if you have dealt with this before and you have any helpful tips, please leave those down in the comments below, and we can share ways that we can help each other out. Keep these creative spirits high, because there are a million and one projects still left to create. There are a million and one things that we are meant to bring into this world to inspire others and set ourselves free. I don't know, I think there's just a certain freedom that comes with fully diving into your creativity. And I'm still going through it, don't get me wrong, especially this week. I'm gonna make a full video for that later, because a lot has happened. There's a lot of bald-headed hoes still trying to come after me, but I'll make a full video later on that when I'm out of the lion's den. I'm still in the lion's den, but when I'm fully out of it, I will make a fully transparent video in the future. But I am not where I was even a week ago. This depression is not at a 4 or 5. She's about a 2 right now, and I'm still working to get her down to a 1 or less again. And by utilizing the same tools that I mentioned in this video, and just making sure I stay on top of it and not giving that bald-headed hoe any kind of power over my life ever again. So you guys are not alone. You're not alone. Don't listen to her. And I wish you the best of endeavors. I wish you all the best in your own journeys and climbing out of your own pits, because you can and you will. And I'm excited to see what kind of beautiful, creative thing that you do as you are climbing out of this pit. So I will see you guys in the next video.